Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about virtual interviewing 101. And today, as Kayla mentioned, I'm Dan Emmerman. I'm a manager at Novogradac. I've been working here for about 7 years. Renee Beaver, she's the managing partner of the Cleveland office of Novogradac. And then John DeJoven, who's a principal at Novogradac, has been a really great help for me, mentoring me. Been working here for a very long time. And Mike Hanna, the recruiting manager, I believe of the entire region, not just Ohio, not just Cleveland. I'm going to start off the presentation, and John's going to do a few slides as well, and Mike's going to chime in when appropriate, and Renee as well. After the presentation, we're going to give some time for questions. So we really appreciate if you guys want to write some questions in. I think someone will be reviewing the questions and reading them off to us, or if if you can unmute at some point and ask questions. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to just talk a little bit about our firm, who we are. We're Novogradac and Company. Three of our core tenets are for our staff are the opportunity to be public accountants and grow in this industry, and to do that having a balance work life. So busy season is a time commitment, of course, in any public accounting firm. And then outside of busy season, we have a lot of ability to to balance your personal life and your work life. And in busy season as well, we do a lot of working with our staff so that they can still take classes, they can still have a family life while they're working through busy season. Mike Novogradac said, one of the core tenets, the company was founded to a great extent, to create an opportunity for people to achieve and be rewarded based on their accomplishments. Novogradac's goal is to build and maintain a platform for professionals to excel. We help grow people by encouraging individuals to challenge themselves and offer ideas to drive themselves and the firm forward. And that's Mike Novogradac, the founding member and active managing partner of the firm. A few more key facts of Novogradac. We have over 850 employees, 64 plus partners, 28 offices. If you count at-home offices, you can say hundreds now. We continue to grow in 2020. Well, a lot of companies have downsized. We consider ourselves pretty recession-proof. So even during the 2008 recession, we were still a growing firm and still hiring very strongly. And in this current climate, we are hiring very strongly this year and have plenty of work during this busy season coming up. Our client base is focused on tax credits based investing. And what that means is we deal with a lot of real estate clients who utilize tax credits to allow investors to invest in low-income communities for rental real estate, for commercial, for historic projects. Here's a map of some of our offices. As you can see, the Ohio dots don't really match up with their actual location. We have a Cleveland office, a Columbus office, and then one of the biggest Novogradac offices is Dover, Ohio. And the Cleveland office is at 1100 Superior. It's very close to Cleveland State. Just showing our growth and just showing how we have really grown throughout the years, especially since I started working here. I think during busy season maybe had 60 people when I started working here, and during the height of busy season and this upcoming busy season, I can imagine around 80 or more people working for our Cleveland office. Mike, correct me if with the details if you would like.
Yeah, Dan, when I was an intern in 2010, I was one of four interns that year, and I think our office was maybe 25 people, and to see it get in the 80s, 90s has been awesome to see, and I think it reflects kind of just that chart there. It has been similar to what we've seen in Cleveland.
Yeah. So just a little bit more about our industries. We work in low-income housing tax credits. John and Renee are experts in this area, and this deals with residential real estate tax credits. New market tax credits deal with commercial real estate. It's one of my practice areas and another large part of the firm. And then historic tax credits. We seem to have a little bit. Everyone sort of deals with this because that actually combines with the new market and the low income housing tax credit pretty well. And then another one are wind and solar based credits. That's another a really strong core area of our practice.
Hey, Dan, can you go back for a second there?
Oh yeah.
So what I've gotten to work in mostly is the LIHTC and the historic, and have gotten to work with some LIHTC clients that work specifically here in Cleveland, and creates really solutions for Cleveland that have grown affordable housing in the area, and it's just been really so rewarding to get to work with clients like that. And then also with the historics, Dan, I think you've gotten this too. We've gotten to work with so many clients that have been part of the revitalization of downtown. And I'll walk around downtown with my friends or parents and kind of point to the buildings that have we've been able to work with or currently are clients of ours. And so it's really nice to be able to work on things that are in your own backyard and have a real impact on Cleveland, which I'm definitely passionate about.
Absolutely, that's a great way to say it. Is it? There's a lot of people think accounting is there's a lot of intangibles to it, a lot of abstract accounting and abstract numbers to the work that you do, but it is really great to be able to walk down the street and see your work displayed as a building. It's very rewarding. So John's gonna take over now, and he's just gonna let me know when he wants to move slides, and he's gonna talk about preparations for virtual interviewing. And again, this topic is very new to everyone, virtual interviewing. And I would just want to say though, it's new, but ends up being very similar to interviewing in person. And there's a lot of established practices with virtual interviewing, and the fact that people have been doing phone interviews and phone screenings for years. So there's a lot of practices that actually kind of merge in for this type of topic. So it's a lot less new than you think, even though there is a lot still to get used to. All right, John, take it away.
Sure. So this is just an overview of kind of what we'll cover on these next slides. So you can go ahead to the next slide there, Dan. So first, dress to impress. Whether it's in person or a virtual interview. Being dressed for the occasion absolutely helps. I've been doing a lot of interviews right now. Have probably already done 10 or 15 so far this year, and it always gets off to a good start when you see somebody who took the time and got dressed up for the interview. And then some things to keep in mind for when it's virtual is making sure all your technology works. Take the time to a half hour early or the day before, make sure it's all working properly. Can you hear me? Do a tech check, make sure that you've got it working smoothly. Log on plenty early so you're not scrambling. There's not an issue with the meeting password, or these are all kind of common things that we run into now. So doing that front end work so it's smooth when you get into the interviews, really recommended. And then the final point there, smile. So definitely helpful to just have a good demeanor, and everybody likes to talk to people that are in a good mood and smiling. So some people recommend writing a post-it to yourself to keep that in mind. So a good thing to keep in mind there.
Yeah, and I'd say too is dress as if you're going into the interview. Where there with virtual connections, there's a tendency to want to just wear something nice to in the area that the person can see. But I would say, put on your nice shoes. Don't wear PJs. Put on a matching belt. Actually feel like you're going into the interview. And I think what that's going to do for you is it's going to boost your confidence while you're in that interview, and make it feel much more professional, and make it feel like it is an in-person interview.
Yeah, at least from the waist up. From the waist down, you wear whatever you want. Um, um, all right, communication skills. So I think especially when you're doing it over a virtual interview, it's important to kind of get in the rhythm of the interview. So going through practice, walkthroughs with friends or family, I think is definitely a good recommendation. Um, Thinking through some of these common interview questions that you're going to hear, and walking through how you think you would answer those questions, I think is really helpful. You'll always get the auditor tax question. I think that's a typical one. Our firm, we like to know if you have a preference, but luckily for our firm, we're able to do audit or tax, which I think is really great. And one of the reasons I think I originally chose to come here is because I really wasn't sure um, when I was looking for an internship which I preferred. So I thought it was great that I would be able to see both sides of the coin there. And then being ready for technical questions I think is important too. We like to know that you're good at your debits and credits. We can teach you how to use our software and how to do our particular audits. But walking in the door on day one, knowing how to do just typical debits and credits is really important. So, brushing up on that I think is helpful, and being prepared for that is good.
Yeah, so a typical question I will ask is depreciation expense. Is that typically a debit or a credit? And you'd be surprised at whether people can answer that or not, especially considering we go over that type of thing in class a lot. Another thing I ask often is, what's the difference between a balance sheet and an income statement? I'm really asking, for you to explain what a balance sheet is and explain what an income statement is. And so if you can have those type of those answers in your mind, it'll help you answer those type of questions. Now, some interviewers might give you much more complicated questions. We try to keep it relatively simple, but something that will be applicable to the company.
So accept feedback, make improvements on tone and posture, and I think just overall, the virtual interviewing just requires a little bit of more thought and preparation for this sort of thing. So I just had a webinar that I did yesterday for our firm, and we did like a tech check where we walked through our preparation for this. And so you guys are seeing the product of that. They said you should sit a little off center. That's the reason I'm sitting like this today. And making sure that my sound is good through my headset, and I want everybody to be able to hear me clearly. So putting the time and preparation into that, I think really can help for your interviews, and being able to accept feedback from whomever is giving that to you, if it's friends or family, or even during the interview, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, and the key there is practice, practice, practice. Contact your friends, your family. get going with some mock interviews, especially using Zoom or you know, a platform.
Okay. Resume. Um, so make sure you know your resume inside and out. And, um, you know, one thing I do always recommend for a resume, you know, I would recommend typically a one-page resume. You know, I've seen a lot that maybe are 2 pages or 1.5 pages. And, you know, when you're really coming out of school, I'd really hone in on, you know, what your key accomplishments have been so far, and what you want to communicate to your audience. You know, going really far in depth on, you know, some of the things that you maybe did in high school, or, you know, or just some of the lesser accomplishments, you know, find which ones you can leave off, and really get it to a honed in one page that really you think represents yourself, and provides your interviewer a good insight into what your accomplishments have been so far. Um, and you know, just use that resume. You know, I typically, when I'm interviewing, um, I'm kind of walking through, you know, your accomplishments on that resume, and use it kind of as an overview for the interview. So, you know, kind of be prepared on what you want to share about each point you have listed on your resume. And, you know, just and consider what key point you want to get across to your interviewer, and why that point on your resume is so beneficial, and a reason that, you know, you should be a part of their team going forward.
Yeah, another point is have the resume just ready to send through email just in case. Just like in-person interview, you always bring a couple of extra resumes with you to give to the interviewer. Most of the time, the interviewer will have that resume on hand before the interview starts, but you just want to do it just in case, because as John said, this resume, it serves during the interview, it serves as an interview guide to talk about what you've done and how it applies to the position that you're applying for.
If I could add, I'm sorry, if I could add to that real quick. Always have a backup plan when you're getting ready for a virtual interview. And I don't mean you need to have like 3 laptops in front of you, but, you know, as great as technology is, it fails sometimes. So have an email address written down, have a phone number if you have one. So if by all means, I mean, I was on a call the other day and my cable, you know, I was using the virtual, my cable went down in the middle of the call, you know, and it was my fault. But within 30 seconds, I had a text message, from the candidate, you know, asking me if we could reschedule, and they took the blame for it, even though it was my fault. But you know, have a backup plan. You know, it doesn't have to be anything too dramatic, but be prepared. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah,
absolutely.
thanks. That's a good point.
Yeah, you can if you have an iPad or a cell phone, you can download Zoom on those iPads and cell phones. So you might want to do that. You have your computer, you have your cell phone, you have your iPad, or whatever other technology you have as backup plans. It's a great idea. And that was Mike Hanna, by the way, the recruiting manager. Take it away, John.
Thanks. All right. So research. You know, I think when I'm doing interviews, I always appreciate when the candidate's done some research, and can tell me a little bit about the firm. They've done their homework. They know that we're in the real estate industry, or, you know, whatever internship or full-time position that you're interviewing for. You know, take the time to show that interviewer that, you know, this is an important opportunity to you, and that's why you took the time to go ahead and research it. And then even, you know, researching who you'll be interviewing with. You know, it's so easy with LinkedIn now to pull up information on your interviewer, and, you know, see how long they've been at the firm, and, you know, what their position is. They might have overviews of what they do there. So absolutely something that's well worth the time, and highly recommended. And and one other thing, if anybody has questions as we go here, happy to field any questions as we go. Don't need to wait till the end necessarily. So, all right. This is probably one of my favorite things here is preparing questions in advance. So, I've been through, like I said, quite a few interviews so far this year, and a handful of them haven't had a ton of questions to ask, and it's a little disappointing from an interviewer perspective when somebody who wants to come work at a firm and they haven't they say, oh, I don't have any questions, and they already know everything about the firm. So taking the time to think through, first of all, who you're talking to. Just hey, how long have you been at the firm? What do you like about the firm? What have been some of your big clients that you work on? When did you pass the CPA exam? Just general talking questions like you would ask anybody, I think are a great place to start. And then, just asking about the type of work that you'll have, how many hours you'll be working, I think are all really, really good questions to hone in on. Mike, or Dan, you guys have any questions that you really like to see asked?
Yeah,
People like to, oh, go ahead, Dan, sorry.
Yeah, so we'll talk about this a little bit later on too, talking about finishing your interview strongly. But you definitely want to cater some of your questions towards your long-term commitment to the company. And yeah, you're doing an internship, but we really are looking for interns who are committed to having a career here and wanting to prove themselves and start a career at Novogradac. So try to think about questions like that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you how many times I've been on a phone screen and then I ask, do you have any questions? And I hear, no, you've explained everything really well. And I'm like, yeah, I've been on the phone with you 10 minutes, I know I didn't explain things that well. One thing people always like to talk about themselves. So why not ask them, hey, how did you, come to Novogradac? What do you like best? If you're in a bind, can't think of anything else, just throw that out there. People love to talk about themselves.
When I was interviewing for jobs, I've had interviews where all I did was ask questions and they talked, and it ends up being pretty easy for the interviewee. So definitely just keep thinking of questions. And one of my interviews was, do you have another question for me? And I'd ask a question and he'd talk, and they'd say, do you have another question for me? And that kept going on until I ran out. And it was a long interview with me asking question after question. So I was glad I was prepared. Have questions written down. The one benefit of having a virtual interview is that you could have a list of questions on another screen, on a notepad. Have them written down, and don't feel afraid to say, hey, let me look at my notes and look at some questions. We actually think that's a great thing, and it shows that you're being prepared.
All right. Questions not to ask. Compensation, benefits. When you're talking at certain points in the interview, this isn't really the time for that question. But there'll be a time to find that information out. So you can, Mike, what's the appropriate time to ask for this information, or when do you find it out?
Typically during the offer process. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get asked too much, and honestly, benefits I don't really mind, especially for an intern candidate, because it tells me they're thinking about the future and they're thinking about eventually being a full-time employee at Novogradac. You don't want your first question to be though, how much do you pay? You want to talk more about the opportunity at hand, the career growth, the learning process. Prior to getting into compensation.
Yeah, especially when it's like, you're doing an internship and it's $20 an hour or $21 an hour or $19 an hour. It's like, you really should be more focused on like what are my growth benefits? Where do I see this as a firm I could be a part of long term? Not, am I going to make an extra $100 this internship or something? So, um,
Yeah, and you could see this list of questions not to ask. Maybe it's not all inclusive, but it's pretty short. There's more questions, good questions that you can ask than there's bad questions that you shouldn't ask. And keep that in mind. Remember, list out questions right after this presentation. Make a list of questions for your next interview.
Punctuality. So, this is especially, well, it always was important. But for the virtual perspective, not cutting it close, not waiting till a minute or two to join the meeting, getting there well in advance to make sure everything's working properly, shows that, this is an important opportunity for you, and you're obviously interested in what the opportunity can provide you.
Okay, so I'm going to take it away from here and talk about technology. Now, this is the part of the presentation that probably is the most different from what you may have experienced in a prior life. It seems like, but pre-March, you wouldn't care as much about these things. So it's good to pay attention to these, especially. So let's go over software first. Familiarize yourself with the software applications. Just even joining this presentation is helping that, right? You had to download Zoom. You had to make sure it worked. I would say download all the big software applications. It's good that we have a lot of options, but it's bad in the fact that you have to be comfortable with a lot of different options. The one that we use is Zoom. And the one that I think most firms are using is Zoom. I never even heard of Zoom before March. So you have to make sure that you're starting to get familiar with this. Download it, download Skype, Google Hangouts. I think there's one from Microsoft as well. And try these out with friends. Try them out on different computers, try them out on your phone, see what works. And make sure you are understanding that the software being used, you ask ahead of time what software is being used, and then try that software out the day of the interview. I think that's all on that. Mike or John, you want to add anything?
No.
Zoom or Skype are the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Now, audio settings. You want to be able to make sure that people can hear you. Most computers, they have a pretty good microphone on them these days. Most laptops, desktop computers, you might not be as lucky. You might need an external microphone. Now, I use an external microphone myself. It's called a Blue Snowball. It's a little bit on the more expensive side, but I'm doing a lot of interviews. I'm doing a lot of presentations, so I think it's worth it. Look into if you think that's worth it. Try out with friends using an external versus an internal microphone, and just make sure that you're able to be heard clearly. I don't think you need an external microphone, but if you think you're going to be doing a lot of interviews, you might want to look into it. And again, try all these things with friends. I think that's the best, your best way of going around it.
Yeah, don't eat, don't chew gum. I would also recommend having a water close by. And I back in high school speech team, they always had me drinking hot tea right before, and it works. Your voice projects better when you have a hot beverage, to sip on while you're talking. So.
Yeah, and make sure you can use the mute function as you like. During some interviews, I mute myself while the other person is talking. You don't necessarily have to do that. It might be better to click less, and we'll talk about that later. And just keep yourself unmuted. But just remember that option is there in case you need it. Also, watch out for feedback. So you might even be getting some feedback from mine if you have an interview with me, because I have this external microphone. So make sure you ask maybe a few minutes into the interview, just say, am I sounding okay? Am I clearly being able to communicate with you? And is there any feedback? Because a lot of times just a simple adjustment, moving the mic away or something like that can really help. Okay, camera settings. Ensure that your camera is working and the view is not disabled. Now, I've actually had a few interviews where the person says, oh, my camera doesn't work. I would say, make sure you have a working camera. We do want to see your face. We do want to have a face-to-face interaction, as much of a face-to-face interaction as we can. So there's external webcams that you can buy. A lot, even the cheap ones are actually very good these days. So make sure you invest in a camera, either one that's built into your computer already or your phone or your iPad, and make sure it's set up properly. Now, lighting should not be too bright or too dark, and that you're clearly visible. As you can see behind me, if you can see my my thumbnail, I have a light over here that's not on. And the reason for that is because if I turn on a light that is my camera is pointing towards, it's going to flush out the background, and it's going to actually make it harder to see my face. So I actually have a pretty cheap lamp that I bought, a standing lamp that I bought, and I put it behind my camera. And that helps illuminate my face, but not obstructing the camera. And so I highly suggest you just consider the lighting. You see there's a window behind me that I probably should have shut because there's light coming out of it. So, consider the lighting. And again, when you have a mock interview with your friend, you ask for those type of things. How do I look? Is there some sort of light source that's messing up, how I look and not able to see me clearly? And then the last thing, I think the hardest thing, especially for me, is making sure you know where to put your eye. And you'll see me during this presentation do this a lot, where I'm looking, a few different places, and I'm not looking straight at the camera. I think this is the hardest thing for me, because the person that you are viewing is going to be below the camera. And you at least make sure that they're very close to the camera, so that you have a little bit of eye contact. And I think that's probably the most difficult thing, and especially when you're looking around. If you have two monitors, you'll see me doing that a lot. I need to work on that type of thing. But yeah, make sure you're maintaining eye contact as much as possible. Okay, internet connection. This would be maybe the thing that is the most difficult and maybe the biggest obstacle with digital interviewing. Make sure you have a strong and secure Wi-Fi or internet connection. If the internet connection is slow, it's gonna disrupt the audio and video, and it's gonna make it hard for the interviewer to hear you. One way to do this is you can go on Google and type in speed test and see the speed of your internet connection at any given time. So you probably want to try that at least a few times. You don't have to do it compulsively, but at least kind of see what your internet speed is. And then during your interview, make sure that any housemates you have aren't streaming video. They could probably stream music, Spotify, and it probably won't hurt, but I'd say ask them to stop streaming everything. Use the internet as little as possible so that you can use it and benefit during your interview. Make sure that no one's playing video games or downloading large files in your house while you are doing your interview. That will destroy your internet. Use an Ethernet cable as much as possible. Ethernet cables are sort of out of fashion with computers, I'd say, but if you can connect your computer to an Ethernet connection, it will be surprisingly faster. A lot of people's internet connections, it's the Wi-Fi signal that ends up being the issue. I'm doing mine through Wi-Fi though. So there are ways to have certain type of router assisters that you can buy called receivers or mesh networks that could help you get a better internet connection. They are expensive, so I would say only look into those if you're having a serious issue with your internet. Issues do happen with the internet. This could cut out right now. And I would just say the interviewer is willing and able to help mitigate those issues, reschedule the interview if needed, or go into a phone option. There are options, so stay calm, try to contact the interviewer in another way. And if the internet connection goes out or isn't ideal, talk about other options so that, you could do it at a different time. So some additional computer settings, turn off the computer sleep mode. And if you forget to do this, you can, move your mouse every once in a while to make sure your computer isn't sleeping. You want to avoid that as much as possible, but if needed, you can do it. And then turn off applications on your computer. So before this presentation, I turned off our internal messaging app, and I turned off my email. And I made sure that there's actually, you can Google settings from Microsoft, audio settings from Microsoft, and how to disable sounds coming from your computer, email notifications, any other errors, dings, and all of that. Okay, environment and settings. So ensure you're in a quiet room with 0 distractions. We just got a new dog, and I was worried, okay, is this dog gonna be barking while we're doing this interview? And so, I made sure that the dog was with my housemaid and able to stay with her and make sure that they're gated off and that they're not going to come in. This could be a challenge for people, especially, with children or pets. I would again say interviewers are going to be understanding during this time. If you need a minute to situate your kids or your pets, say, hey, I need a minute. I would say disable your video for a minute and your audio. Go and take care of making sure everyone's comfortable. Come back and do the interview. People will be understanding. Avoid swivel chairs or chairs that are going to cause a lot of noise as well. Avoid a distracting background. As you can see, John has a virtual background behind him, and I don't. I wasn't able to get mine to work. I don't know how it messes up with my face, but I can't do it. So I just make sure that, there's nothing behind me that's going to be too distracting. Behind me is not the greatest view. I'd rather have a virtual background, but you don't have to have that. A lot of your Beta Alpha Psi members right now, I'm looking around, everyone has a pretty great, background, non-distracting background. Again, you want to focus on your face, make sure that interviewer is able to see you clearly. Avoid being near a window. I'm actually near a window. So that's another thing that, there could be a car coming by, and, you do the best that you can in these situations. And again, when I'm talking about all of these items, do the best that you can, that you do not have to worry about getting everything right. We are very understanding during these times, but the more that you can get done, the more you can prepare, the better. Turn off non-essential devices. I put my phone, I turned it off. I actually put it in the other room. So make sure that your phones are off for sure. Okay, body language and professionalism. So during a in-person interview, you'll hear people talk about this a lot, where you have to have a good body language, you have to sit up straight, have a good posture, and it's the same with virtual interviews. You really want to show that you're paying attention, that you are eager to get the interview. So speak clearly and be genuine in your speech. Listen carefully. These are all things that you would be doing whether it was virtual or not. Now, a new thing though is wait a few seconds before speaking to avoid cutting off due to potential audio delays. This happens all the time with interviews where you will be talking over another person. It's okay, but what I'd say is just give it a pause, wait a few seconds, and then go on to the next thing. It might seem a little awkward at first, but what I would say is during your mock interviews, have a little longer pause than you would expect to, just to kind of get used to it. It's something that we just have to get used to in this type of situation. Sit up straight with good posture. I have a standing desk. I stand during some of my interviews. I sit during some of my interviews. Most people I see are sitting. That's fine. Just make sure you're sitting and your posture is good. I like to stand because it keeps me more alert. And I think someone standing when they're interviewing, it's not typical for an in-person interview, but during a virtual interview, it could be fine. And I think it works well. Be authentic with the way that you're speaking. I guess that means don't have an accent. And remember to smile. And we said, write a smile on a Post-it note on your computer. You might even want to have a picture of a loved one that just makes you smile, or something, just to brighten up your mood a little bit, and make sure you're really, really showing that you are eager to have this opportunity. I'd say one weird thing with interviewing is that you can see yourself during the interview. Now you can't do that in an in-person interview. You don't have a mirror behind you and looking at yourself. So that's just one thing you want to maybe not be aware of. Try to avoid looking directly at yourself and instead look at the interviewer. Okay, so this next topic is about finishing the interview strong. And again, this is something that probably you would want to pay attention to, whether this is a in-person interview or a virtual interview. So let's go with asking job-related questions. We don't have to spend too much more time on this. We talked about it with John. But again, you want to demonstrate a level of interest in the job. And that's by asking questions, being willing to learn about the company, go on the website, find some questions specific to the company, and talk about that. And it says 3 to 5 questions prepare to ask. I would say make a list of questions, as many questions as you possibly can. Have a good list of, I would even say 10 questions. You don't have to ask all 10 of them, but at least you'll have them to fall back on in case you need them, and put them right next to you during the interview so that you can reference them. John, do you want to add anything more on? We already kind of went through this a little bit, but
yeah, but I think to add to that, showing that you're asking questions to try to figure out what the internship or job would be like. So I think that really shows that you got, an analytical, the ability to think about it analytically, and to ask questions that can kind of get to the heart of what the opportunity would be like, what the growth opportunity would be for someone coming in like yourself. And then also, asking questions of the interviewer, and to get their perspective on what your opportunity will be like as well. So I think it's a really good opportunity to show off your critical thinking and your analytical skills to ask questions that really will enlighten you into what the opportunity will be like.
Yeah. And we put this in the finish strong section because this is one of the most important parts of the interview, is the questions that you ask. Okay, so you want to remind the interviewers, what do you have to offer that you can apply to the job? And you might say, I've only worked at retail, or I only worked at, what is how does that apply to accounting? And the answer is that it applies a lot. Your soft skills matter a lot, especially when you're an intern. Of course, the technical skills matter, but the soft skills matter a lot when you're doing an internship. So if you worked in retail, well, you were customer facing. So just the fact that you can interact with customers, you probably come across a lot of issues with customers that you've had to deal with, and that you have to de-escalate certain situations. You want to talk about that type of thing and show how that applies to working in public accounting. And then show that you're excited for the opportunity, say, and just say why you think they should hire you. Remember, you're trying to sell yourself. We're trying to say, hey, this is a great place to work for. And you're trying to say, I'm a great person for you to hire. So it goes both ways. So next steps and thank you. Measure where the interview process goes from there. But regardless, say, what's the next step in this process? When can I hear from you next? After this interview, is there going to be another interview? Is there going to be another round? What do I do next to be able to get this internship? And and then thank the interviewer for their time, and really be appreciative of just their time and the fact that you were given this opportunity. And we'll thank you as well for giving us the opportunity to talk with you. And then I'd say follow up the same day with a thank you email. This is a standard practice now. This does not elevate you above other candidates. So if you forget to do a thank you, or if you decide not to, all it does is kind of deduct from our thinking of you. So I would just say, no matter how the interview went, no matter what you think about it, just send a thank you email. And in that thank you email, you would want to just reiterate sort of the narrative of that interview. I would be really great for this position because I worked in retail, and I have these great soft skills that apply to the job. Or I did tax preparation last year, and I know a lot of technical tax topics, and I've worked through a lot of technical issues, and I can apply it to Novogradac. Those are the type of things that you just want to say in 1 or 2 sentences in your interview. And again, personalize and keep it simple. Proofread your email. And this applies to in-person and virtual interviews. And I would say always do it as an email. Some people say do a handwritten thing. I would say just always do it as an email. John, do you want to add anything, or Mike?
No, just I agree with you. Definitely a nice way to cap it off is just to send a brief thank you. It doesn't have to be extra long or anything like that, but just knowing that you took the time and just reiterate something that was positive from the interview is the key there. Yeah.
And so that sort of concludes we're going to talk a little bit more about our firm and why it's great to work for Novogradac. And we just like to reiterate with virtual interviewing, we know that this is difficult. It's a little bit different for all of us. So the interviewers are very understanding if there's a technical issue, if a pet walks into the interview. Everyone's very understanding if you can't get the background just right. The goal is to be able to make as much of a connection with your interviewer as possible. And that's what these things that we've been going through, we're just trying to help you strengthen that connection between you and the interviewer. So John is going to go through some great things about Novogradac, and if you're interested, we highly suggest you reach out to us, reach out to Mike Hanna, and schedule an interview with us.
Great. Any questions before we move on interviewing?
I'm seeing some chat logs, but I think it might. Yeah.
You're from me. Hi everyone. Thanks for your attendance today, and we really appreciate great presentation by the guys. I've been monitoring the chat, and I hadn't seen any questions, so I was just reminding everybody they could use the chat, or of course speak up with any questions.
Have many people done virtual interviews so far?
That's many, and that's okay. I would say one of the things you want to take away from this, if you haven't done a lot of virtual interviews, is get one set up with a family member or a friend. Do that tomorrow, and just download Zoom, set up a virtual interview, even just to test how your environment looks and how you can present yourself in front of a camera.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm sorry. Can I?
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of students like us are coming in with not a lot of we have some experience in the field, but a lot of us are pretty much looking for entry-level positions and internships. So in the beginning, when you said list off your accomplishments, what type of things would it be okay for a student to do you want to talk our coursework, or what maybe the few experiences we had in the accounting related industry? What do you guys like to hear at that point in time?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is what you've accomplished so far in college. What your GPA has been, what courses you've been through, what other activities have you been involved in. Obviously, you're in Beta Alpha Psi, so that's a really good start there. You know, what other things are you doing outside of school, or do you have a part-time job that you're also doing while you're going to school? You know, if that's the case, um, it's not necessarily about what you're doing at that job, but more the fact that you're balancing having that job while you're also going to school and being a member of Beta Alpha Psi and getting your 3.7 GPA, or whatever it is. So all the hard work that you've been putting into school, putting that down on your resume, so so it's really easy for somebody to see, see those accomplishments that you have had. And as far as when we're looking to bring people on board here, we're not expecting you to know how to do audits. Really, we're looking for people who've gone through those introductory accounting classes. Have a good pretty good understanding of debits and credits and know how to do that. And that was kind of what we were talking about earlier with asking those questions, maybe one question on depreciation or something like that, because we're focused in real estate. But other than that, we're just looking for, people that are smart and hardworking. Those are how have always been the two most important things to me.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, just to add on to that, we're looking. Sometimes the best way to answer those type of questions, what type of experience you have, is to think of a narrative. Think of a specific time that you had a issue with a customer in retail, or had a specific time that you had to work with a group, and how what challenges were there and how you overcame them. If you're able to kind of create a narrative and explain that through your answer, it ends up creating an impression for us.
Great.
I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Jordan.
So I heard when I was interviewing that it necessarily doesn't really matter. So I'm a grad student, and you have to choose a track between audit or tax. I'm in the tax, but does it matter if you're in the tax track, or how does that work?
So for our firm, we're basically everybody that works at our firm does both audit and tax. So from our perspective, it really wouldn't have a big impact upon uh, us, whether you pick the audit or tax track. Um, you know, Looking for other positions at other firms, you might be more, um, you might get more attention from tax positions if you do pick the tax track. And I would guess that that's probably what you're looking for too. That was the reason you chose it. And but if you decide that you really you've been through the tax track and you decide that you really like audit better, I think people would be understanding of that too. The important thing is that you've shown that you've been successful in school regardless of what you studied. Your debits and credits. You got a you took an audit class or a few of them, and I'm sure you could make the transition to that if you pick the to audit if you pick the tax track.
Yeah, and I always ask that question. What are you interested in, audit or tax? Even though at Novogradac you get to do both, which is a great opportunity at Novogradac to be exposed to both. But the reason why I ask that question is so that I want to know what you're interested in. I want to know. I want you to say. You can say I'm interested in tax and audit, and the reasons why. And that's what we're looking for. It's not just saying, oh, I'm interested in tax. It's I'm interested in tax, and this is the reason why. And that's what really is a strong answer to that question.
All right. Just a few more slides here on Novogradac. So transparency. One of our favorite things, Dan, I think I can speak for you, is our annual chart talk and vision speech. So we have a meeting every year with all the partners in our office, and they walk through, at a high level perspective, how our firm is doing, or how our office is doing in relation to the firm, how the firm's doing, um, you know, what salaries are, and they really give great insight and show you that they're not hiding anything. We're very open and transparent about it. And then we also get that from Mike Novogradac, the firm's founder. He does an annual vision speech where, he says where the firm's at, where he sees it in 5 years. And he always tells how he kind of got the inspiration to start the firm. He was at a big four or big eight firm at the time, and they were telling him you just got to kind of wait your time in order to become a partner. And he didn't think that it should really be based upon how successful you are, and how much new revenue you can bring, and all the things that you can do. And so he went out and started our firm, and been really successful. And I feel lucky to work here. And then you also get that from a work-life balance perspective. Outside of busy season, I think we have a really good schedule. Typically 8 hours a day, for 9 months of the year. Able to dress for your day. When we're in the office, lots of food in the office. Stock kitchens, which might be a slide here that we're going to get to in a minute. But lots of really great benefits to working here. Dan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, again, we are very open to sort of people having unique schedules. We really care about people getting their CPA exam. So we work with once you're an employee at Novogradac, we work with you to make sure that you have the time to study for the CPA. And I think we have another slide where we have a compensation once you pass the CPA as well, to compensate you for the expenses.
So, Dave, is David still here? Elena, were you just an intern this past year?
Yes, I was. I was an intern this past busy season.
Okay, I'm like the COVID's throwing me all off. I can't remember if it was 2 years ago or, yeah. So we do know how to throw a party. We didn't get to throw a party this year, but I think Elena can attest to it. We had a ton of happy hours before COVID. It was a really social group. We have a lot of breweries and around our neighborhood over by the office there, and have a really inclusive, friendly group of people that work there. That really everybody's welcome. It's just a fun group to be around. So even me, the old guy, I got invited. So it was pretty fun. Also, professional development. We have lots of training opportunities offered in-house. So lots of webinars that you can watch to gain more knowledge and get your CPE. And we also have an office buddy program that we offer for interns, where you'll get introduced to somebody that's been with the firm for a year or two, and they can give you insights into things that are parking, where to go to lunch, questions like that you might not go to your direct report to. So we found that's really helpful for new interns coming on board. And then fully stocked kitchens, like I was saying earlier, and giving back to the community. Like I was noting earlier, really great to work with some really great companies both in the area and outside of Cleveland that do really good things for for affordable housing. So that's a great thing. And then we also have a community service day where you can go out and help the organization of your choice. So I think they, we absolutely support giving back and community service. So I think it's great.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, we did a volunteer at a place last year that we ended up closing a deal with, unrelated to that volunteer thing, but we ended up closing a deal with them and working with them in the accounting side too, on just in a separate occasion. And it just kind of shows how building up your community is kind of integral to our company, not just having a community today, but on a day-to-day life, we are all about building up low-income communities, building up Cleveland, and seeing it grow.
All right, and a company built to last, like Dan was saying earlier. We are fully ready to go here. Whether we're going to be in the office or not in the office. We definitely need interns. We have lots of work that still needs done. We're continuing to grow and have had a good year here even during COVID. So we're looking for lots of interns and staff, just like all of yourselves, to be a part of our firm. We've got a great 401k, profit sharing benefits. Haven't had any changes to that due to COVID. So I think it's really a great place to be.
All right, so that's the end of the presentation. If you're interested in Novogradac, again, we really hope that you can reach out to us. Mike Hanna can take a lot of your emails, and you can feel free to reach out directly to me or John as well, or Renee, especially with any questions. And especially just in general, if you have any questions about virtual interviewing, go ahead and shoot it our way. And just the one last thing is practice. Sign up for mock interviews. There's some coming up with CSU soon. So sign up for those and learn how to do a mock interview virtually, and it will apply especially when you start doing interviews in person as well. So again, just practice these things and you'll get better at it for sure. Any closing thoughts from Mike or Renee?
Kayla, I'll go ahead and send over the link to our website to apply for the internship in Cleveland. If anybody needs it, that's okay.
Sounds great. Thank you guys so much for spending the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.